Hi everyone, at this point you should have already watched the very quick video on this week's assignment, and now for this video I'm just going to talk a little bit about the content that we are covering. So now for week 2 in advanced writing, we are really thinking about hooks. We will be reading and thinking about what hooks are and how we can design our own hooks. So we actually had a pretty good example of a hook at the beginning of a story last week when we read I Am Malala. I mentioned in the very quick lecture on that memoir how Malala just dives in. In the first couple of paragraphs, we have very little information about who she is. We have little information about where she's living and really what she's doing. She lets these questions kind of sit. And in many ways, those questions are what allow us or force us to move on, to move forward with the story. Now, for this week, we will have one main example. So it's from Wild by Cheryl Strayed. That was a memoir that was published originally in 2012, and there is a movie version of it with Reese Witherspoon. If you want to poke around and find it, it's a pretty good adaptation of it. All right, so we have in Cheryl Strayed's memoir, Wild, we have another version of a hook. And now if you go into the discussion board for this week, you will see there is a selection of 3 or 4 other hooks at the beginning of memoirs. All right, so I want to talk in this video a little bit about our main reading assignment. So the opening of the memoir titled Wild. Now what I want to do, and this is similar to what I did last week, is to just give you the opening of the story. And this is just because we're thinking about hooks and we're thinking about openings for this week. All right, so here is the opening of Wild. My solo hike on the Pacific Crest Trail, 3 months, 1,100 miles, had many beginnings. There was the first flip decision to do it, followed by the second, more serious decision to actually do it. And then the weeks of shopping and packing and preparing to do it. There was the quitting of my job as a waitress and finalizing my divorce from a man I still loved and selling almost everything I owned and visiting my mother's grave one last time. There was the driving across the country from Minneapolis to Portland, Oregon, and a few days later, catching a flight to Los Angeles and a ride to the town of Mojave. All right, so the basic idea that I want us to take away from this opening is that as we read along, all of these different questions pop into our minds. For example, why did she decide to hike the Pacific Crest Trail? Another question that might have popped into your mind is what was the driving force behind her deciding to quit her job as a waitress? Did something happen that really encouraged her to do that or even forced her to do that? Another question that might have popped into your mind, it certainly popped into mine, was why did she decide to leave a husband that she still loved? Now, we have these 3 questions and many others that automatically pop into our minds as we read along. So basically, this is what a hook does. And you can do this in your own stories. A hook gives the reader enough information that they can ask questions, but not so much information that they can start answering them. We have to read along to find out the answers to this particular questions. So, basic idea here, do not worry about completely orienting your readers in the story in the first couple of paragraphs. We will be writing memoirs that will be, by the time we get to the end of it, around 6 pages or more long. You have plenty of time to dive into the story, let your readers feel disoriented, and then have the story gradually unravel as we go along. All right, that is what I really wanted to talk about with this week's reading. There are many other things we can take out of Cheryl Strayed's Wilds, and I really look forward to hearing your different thoughts on openings and hooks in general in the discussion board.